What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbein, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, another day, another Aaron Rodgers update, as I've said all week long. This one's a little bit surprising, and I'm excited to get into it because I think it does shine some light on where the Pittsburgh Steelers stand with Aaron Rodgers, or really where Aaron Rodgers stands with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Meanwhile, today is an important pro day, and the news that we have not gotten yet is the biggest news maybe of the entire week, and a change in draft plans with a surprising addition to the selections the Pittsburgh Steelers can make at pick 21. We're diving into all of it, plus more. It's a beautiful one here in the Berg. Once again, we got double construction going on outside the building today. We got our construction, neighbors construction, a lot going on. How you feeling, my friend? And excited for a weekend that, I mean, we are 2 days away from the deadline, the expectation that I received on Monday, that I will not lie, by the day I'm feeling less and less confident in.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little dejected based on what happened yesterday. I mean, Pirates season opens and they blow a late lead. Penguins get their doors blown off. And then we have the brakes pumped a little bit on Aaron Rodgers. So it feels like everything's trending in the wrong direction. But hey, at least it's sunny in Pittsburgh, PA.
That's exactly what, at least it's sunny in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm going to get some nice Italian food tonight. And then tomorrow morning, I'm taking my happy fat butt to Florida, where the weather's warm. The pool is hopefully perfect temperature. Don't want to say cold. Nobody wants a cold pool. And, well, maybe some Aaron Rodgers news emerges while I'm on the plane. Because if anything, that's exactly what's going on here, is I'm leaving for the betterment of everybody else to say, all right, here's 2.5 hours. This is the window. If you're going to get it done, this is when you get it done, because Noah is not around to fix things. Let's dive into just that. Aaron Rodgers, man. It never ends. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to end. I have no idea where Aaron Rodgers stands with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I do know this, that yesterday, Tom Pelissero of NFL Network dropped, I think, the most surprising piece of the news cycle when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and everything that is going on. He says on the Jim Rome show, quote, Aaron basically invited himself on a visit last week. He was in the building for several hours. He watched tape with the coaches. The deal has been in place contract-wise for weeks. They've discussed parameters. This is not going to be a financial issue at all for Aaron Rodgers. If it gets done, it's going to be a 1-year deal, which we have been saying the entire time. This was a get-to-know-you meeting. Everything there sounds positive, I can tell you. Aaron has kept a dialogue with various members of the organization, coaches, other players. There's been communication like this in something. There's been communication like this is something he's really going to do at this point right now, sitting here in late March. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the only opportunity that Aaron has. Two parts of this, I think, are surprising. One much more surprising than the other. The fact that there's an open dialogue between both sides, I think, is surprising because, to be honest, what are you talking about? I think that's where I stand on that one. What's the conversation at this point? What are you possibly going back and forth text-wise with when it comes to guys like Pat Freiermuth or DK Metcalf or Mike Tomlin? There's no chance you're sitting there going, yeah, guys, let's talk game plan. Let's talk it's been 3 weeks. Nobody has any idea what's going on. How much more convincing do you need? And at what point do you run out of pitches and recruitment to put in there? And the dialogue must turn into, yeah, let's do this when let's train here. Let's focus on this on the offense. I think we could do these kinds of things. This is the cool food in Pittsburgh. This is where the hippie latte place is. I don't know what you could possibly be saying to these people after 3 weeks. I think that's the big one, is what is the dialogue that continues to happen between Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers? Because quite frankly, we're out of dialogue here. I just don't understand what you could be. That's like texting somebody for 3 weeks trying to convince them to come hang out with you. What are you convincing? What's going on? There's no other options on the table. Like, that's the other part of this. It's not like the Minnesota Vikings are sitting around going, Aaron, we got to convince you too. No, I bet you the Aaron Minnesota Vikings dialogue is very minimal. Very minimal. They have an understanding. He has an understanding of where both sides sit, and they could just hang out and once in a while check in to see how things are going. And obviously retirement's on the table, but again, how long have we had to speak and think about retirement? I just don't know what the dialogue can be. And then on the other side of it, the fact that he invited himself to Pittsburgh, which clearly shows, hey, I have interest in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm really actually considering this. Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, skip Michigan's pro day. Hang out with me for 6-7 hours. Let's go through game plan. Let's meet with coaches. Let's watch film. Let's dive into what we can do together collectively as an organization and a unit in 2025. And then let me take an entire week to continue to think about it while we still talk. Which, again, goes back to the first point. If you spent 6 hours with somebody trying to get to know them, and then you still have to maintain dialogue with these people, what is going on? That's how I view this news. Is simple. Man, the Pittsburgh Steelers, dude, they either failed to wow Aaron Rodgers, completely missed on the pitch to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron really is turning this into the most dramatic situation he possibly can, and he's well aware of what's going on. Or he really, really, truly does not want to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he is just playing them like a fiddle, sitting around going, I got to make sure that they look at this and say maybe. And maybe it was a shot to the Minnesota Vikings to say, hey, I'm serious about this. But either way, on the Steelers side of things, man, it does not look good for Pittsburgh. This looks way worse to have the understanding that he said, I want to come to you. I want to have this meeting that most times ends in a deal. And then I'm going to take a full week afterwards to say, I'm still going to think about it. I still think we're going to need some time, some more time. Absolutely wild. I mean, looks awful for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but most of these things have looked awful for the Pittsburgh Steelers throughout this entire segment. I mean, how low on the board are the Steelers for Aaron Rodgers? And I mean, am I looking at this the wrong way? But in my eyes, the second I read that, the second I heard it, I said, Aaron, man, he wants to be anywhere but Pittsburgh. I can tell you that much. He wants to be anywhere but Pittsburgh, and he's having the hardest time in the world accepting the fact that this is where he probably has to be in 2025.
I think the come to terms situation with Rodgers is coming to terms with the fact that while he probably does, I don't think he doesn't want to come to Pittsburgh. If he didn't want to come to Pittsburgh and it was his only option, it would look a lot different than this. It wouldn't look like Aaron Rodgers showing up unannounced, or at the very least showing up and announcing it last minute and spending 6 hours in the Steelers training facility. Because if he was not interested in Pittsburgh, that could have been done on a Zoom call. That could have been done on a FaceTime. So the fact that he showed up in Pittsburgh, spent the 6 hours in the facility, and then went to New Jersey afterwards, that tells me that there is interest in Pittsburgh. So I think that the fact that he came unannounced doesn't change much in that aspect. What it tells me more than anything is that the Steelers are very desperate to have him be their starting quarterback in 2025. Because if he showed up last minute, he showed up with enough of a lead time that the Steelers canceled their flights to Ann Arbor. Yeah. So if they had any option, they could have said, hey, Aaron, how about you show up? We'll have somebody show you around the facility, and then we'll be there in a couple days because Michigan is one of the top 3 pro days that Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, and the entire contingency like to go to. This just tells me how desperate the Steelers are to have Aaron Rodgers. And to me, it tells me that he is their number one option right now. He is their top priority. And then there is a gap between him and whatever else they have on their to-do list.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there is a massive gap between Aaron Rodgers and anything else that they've got going on because it's their quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. This team does not operate without a quarterback. No team in the NFL operates without a quarterback. But I mean, so what's the holdup? If you are the guy that's invited yourself to Pittsburgh, and I get it, there were like rumors and speculation that he could go to New York, never ended up there. Russell Wilson signs a deal before maybe he gets an opportunity to. But he says, hey, I want to go to Pittsburgh. And now it's a week later, and there's still no news, no movement on Pittsburgh. There hasn't been a change in anything. So what are the thoughts of Aaron? Like, what do you spend this week doing? If you're Aaron Rodgers, what's this week?
I mean, maybe we mistimed when he was doing his darkness retreat. Maybe before he was contemplating his retirement, and that he does on sunset walks on the beach in Malibu. And now that he has all the information after 3 weeks of taking in information from the Vikings, from the Giants, from the Steelers, he said, all right, I'm going to go into the darkness and I will emerge. And maybe that's where Pelissero got his timeline for Sunday or next few days. I will emerge from the darkness and have a decision for you by the end of the week. Maybe that's what Aaron Rodgers is doing. But outside of that, honestly, I have no idea. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, there's a reason this guy has a Netflix documentary entitled Enigma. Nobody can pin down what he's going to do or what he's thinking. There's probably 5 people in this world that have any idea which way he's even leaning, let alone what his decision's going to be. So as far as, what's happening right now, who the hell knows? I think maybe that's only Aaron Rodgers and, the powers that be in the universe that know at this point.
I 100% agree. First off, did you watch the documentary?
The first 20 minutes of it, I got to finish it, especially if he ends up coming to Pittsburgh, because I got to understand this guy on a deeper level.
I 100% agree, but I feel like I have to do it ritual wise now because I haven't done it yet. At first, it would just be a documentary. Now I have to understand Aaron Rodgers, which means I might have to go, I have to go buy some crazy incense or something, really make sure the room's looking fine. We're in a good spot. I might have to sit on the floor and watch this thing, or go outside, pull it up on my phone, sit in a tree, and then really embrace what the Aaron Rodgers situation is when I do this. I agree with you. I have no idea what's going on, but it is wildly confusing. And that's the craziest part right here. That's you could talk the whole time about Aaron Rodgers has to contemplate this and that. If Aaron Rodgers had enough interest to say, I want to come to Pittsburgh and check it out, and then you've just spent the whole week thinking about UPMC Rooney Sports Complex is not that big, man. There's not that much going on. The city of Pittsburgh isn't that big. You want to know what's happening. You could figure this thing out in 24 hours. You could know everything that happens here and feel pretty good about it. I mean, I have no idea. He is an enigma. This is a wild situation, and one that every time it takes a turn, you just look at it and go, I can't tell what to think of this guy. And I'm trying really hard to hold off on that. I've said this multiple times. I know a lot of people tell me to hate that I don't hate. I know a lot of people that people tell me to like that I don't like. I have no idea who Aaron Rodgers is. I've never met the guy. Excited to meet the guy. I could tell you this, though. Confusing as hell. The guy is confusing as hell. And I have no idea where we stand with the situation. At the same time, quarterback-wise, we didn't get an update that I think, expected to get this morning or late last night. And, I mean, we all got out of bed, started our day, poured our coffee, scrolled through Twitter, checked out the news, went on YouTube, whatever you do to find and start your day and look for your Pittsburgh Steelers news. You want to know the one headline that was missing that maybe emerges at some point today, but at the time of recording this, at the time we're live, did not happen. The Pittsburgh Steelers didn't take a quarterback out to dinner who has a pro day today. And I don't know who did take that quarterback out to dinner. I would imagine somebody did. Somebody somewhere did. Or maybe nobody did so that they could all hide it. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, I have no idea if they're in Mississippi. Again, we'll find out today at about 11:45 a.m. when Mississippi's pro day, Ole Miss's pro day begins. But I can tell you right now that they didn't, as of the time of recording this, they didn't have dinner with the one Jaxson Dart, who everybody has their eyes on as a potential first-round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you could say that means nothing, but it means a lot in the city of Pittsburgh. These guys love to take their first-round picks out to dinner. They do it all the time. And you could go through the list. The list is long. TJ Watt, Broderick Jones, Kenny Pickett does not count. I get it. Najee Harris. George Pickens was at dinner the year before he actually got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cam Hayward went out to dinner with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a long list of guys who the Steelers look at and say, yeah, I'm going to spend some extra time getting to know you. The quarterback position seems to be the biggest one. And you run through the list of Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, who they met beforehand, but still counts. They made the effort. They made the time for him. They got snubbed, New Orleans, obviously, higher draft pick. Who else am I missing? Will Howard. Will Howard's on that list. Jaxson Dart, my friend, is not. I don't think that rules anything out when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Jaxson Dart. But I do think that as this flows and as this continues, you do have to, pick up the breadcrumbs. We're getting to the time of the year where the draft is less than a month away, a month yesterday, actually, and 28 days as of yesterday or as of today. You start to piece these things together. You're starting to get a real understanding, a real grip on how this NFL draft is looking. There's a lot of talk about Pittsburgh going after Jaxson Dart, a lot of mock drafts with Jaxson Dart in them. I don't know if the Steelers have that interest, and it sure seems like them not taking him out to dinner, them not showing their hands a little bit, just a little bit, kind of feels like maybe Jaxson Dart isn't the guy that they are totally sold on in 2025. And I don't know who else's pro days are today, but I don't know if they're an Ole Miss. And if they are not, that tells you everything you need to know. If they are and they didn't take him out to dinner, maybe I'm reading the tea leaves too much, but they're there. They are definitely there. I don't know. No Jaxson Dart dinner. I don't know when Louisville's is. I'd be very curious to know if they're going to take Tyler Shuck out, because I think that would speak volumes. You want to shut down Jaxson Dart rumors? You take Tyler Shuck out to dinner. Nobody's thinking you have any interest in Jaxson Dart. Am I reading the tea leaves too much? They're there, but am I going too deep on this?
I think there's a third door that you haven't explored here, and that is that the Steelers are looking at this from a realistic perspective. Last year, after the Senior Bowl, everybody said Michael Penix looked awful. Yeah. And Bo Nix looked awful. They're third-round picks, maybe second at most. They both went in the top 15. Yep. And that's a similar trajectory to what we're seeing from Jaxson Dart, because he didn't have a bad Senior Bowl. He had a great Senior Bowl, and everything since then has just progressed at light speed. I've seen mock drafts. I think I said it earlier this week. Mel Kiper has him going 9th to the New Orleans Saints. 9th. That's 12 spots away from where the Steelers can even sniff Jaxson Dart. So I think maybe they're looking at this realistically and saying, if he's already that high in a year where, listen, people really want young quarterbacks, it's probably unrealistic unless we trade the farm, which you should not do in this draft for a quarterback. But unless they trade the farm to move up, Jaxson Dart is probably not going to be available.
I agree. I agree with that. I do look at it that way, which is why Tyler Shuck is a name for me that you got to pay attention to, because the first round interest that we're all coming up with and trying to wrap our heads around one way or another, decide if we believe in or don't believe in it, it does not come down to Jaxson Dart in my eyes. It comes down to Tyler Shuck. Is Tyler Shuck going to be there at 21? And if he is, are the Steelers worthy of grabbing him? Are the Steelers or is he worthy of going to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Do they view him as a first round pick? I think that's the name, because we could, just like you said, like Jaxson Dart could end up 6th. Jaxson Dart could end up 21st. We have it's going to go all over the board. And if you're talking Shedeur Sanders fall into the Steelers, which I've seen as many times as I've seen Jaxson Dart go top 10, then anything is possible when it comes to Jaxson Dart. I don't expect him to be there at 21. I do kind of expect Tyler Shuck to. And I don't know. Can we look up when that pro day is, when Louisville's pro day is? Because I think that speaks volumes. That's the next one we're watching here to say, hey, do the Pittsburgh Steelers have interest in a first-round quarterback? Because if they do, it's not Jalen Milroe. It's not Will Howard. It's not Quinn Ewers. It's Tyler Shuck. And they might be into Tyler Shuck. We got a date?
Yeah, it was listed past Tuesday, and it says all 32 teams were represented.
Yeah, so there was no dinner. There was no dinner. We missed the boat, but that's because they were taken out on Tuesday. They were going to Tuesday, I believe. Tuesday morning was Ohio State, so they were not there. Read the tea leaves, guys. Steelers don't have that interest in a first-round quarterback, which makes the Jalen Milroe thing yesterday we talked about just a little bit more solidified that they do not view him as a first-round quarterback. You want to know who they do view as a first-round option? Who they might view as a first-round option? Ashton Jeanty and a few other running backs that could be sitting there at 21. According to Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry Dulac, the Steelers have interest in a first-round running back, and they view him as the future with Jaylen Warren as the backup, which I think makes complete sense. And they have some options. Now, I said back in the combine that the Steelers could look at a name like Trey Henderson earlier than we anticipate, that Quinshon Judkins and Caleb Johnson are there as well. A first-round quarterback would not surprise me. I think I've been pushing it off every time I've been told it because I just look at it going, there's no chance that you're going to take Trey Henderson. I've had two different conversations, both of them kind of aligned, but they're both important to tell. The first one is I have spoken or heard from people around the league that the Steelers are not the only team that are considering a first-round quarterback outside of Ashton Jeanty, and that if it falls right, if it really starts to tumble, there could be 3 or 4 of them that go in the first round. We're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, who love Ashton Jeanty, do not want him to get past them. We're looking at the Dallas Cowboys. We're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're potentially looking at the Denver Broncos, all looking at first-round quarterbacks before 21 or during 21 in the NFL draft, which is all 4 of the big names. Now, the question is, who do the Steelers like the most? Who do they have their eyes on? Obviously, if Ashton Jeanty makes his way to 21, some crazy way the NFL gods have spoken and they have said Aaron Rodgers has done so much damage to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The chaos is so crazy. We got to throw you a bone. That bone is maybe the cleanest looking NFL running back prospect we have seen in 10 years, including Saquon Barkley. That's how good Ashton Jeanty looks. No, I've heard some crazy things from his pro day. Now, I don't agree with that. Saquon is my dude. Mm-hmm. But I reached out to one NFL scout that was at the pro day and just said, yo, hey, how'd it look? You know, I'm just curious. And the response I got was, I've never seen somebody who just looks so proven. And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but I would imagine it's ridiculous. I know you feel Saquon. Saquon's your guy, right? That's the one that you have above him.
Yeah, it would be Saquon. The things that he did at Penn State for a Power 5 school versus, I mean, Ashton Jeanty did crazy stuff, but he also did it in the Mountain West. Yes. With a Mountain West offensive line, I understand that, but also mostly against Mountain West defenses. So I'd give that to Saquon because I think he was ridiculous against better competition.
I agree. He also had no offensive line. I'm just saying what I've been told. And obviously there's no chance he's going to fall to 21. If he did, wild. There are 3 other names that I think the Steelers could consider at 21. Those names are Quinshon Judkins, Trey Henderson, and Caleb Johnson. I think Omarion Hampton is there. I do think he's an option. I don't think he's first on the Steelers board. I don't. The Steelers are not real heavy at North Carolina. Obviously, Arthur Smith connection is there. That's big. That is something to pay attention to, certainly. And Hampton is a guy that should be really, really good in the NFL draft or in the NFL. But there are 2 names that have been very quiet for the Steelers in this draft process, and that is Caleb Johnson and that is Omarion Hampton. You haven't heard a lot about either of them. You've heard more about Ashton Jeanty than you have either of those guys, and Ashton Jeanty is no chance, not even close to an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Caleb Johnson's on their list. He just fits the mold as a prototypical punch you in the face, real hard-nosed running back. And I think the Steelers obviously would hold favor to that. Omarion Hampton, to me, is too quiet for a school that they do not look to very often, in a situation where there are other names that they typically do look, and other schools that they typically do look to first in these sorts of scenarios. But the name that I have first on this list is Trey Henderson. That guy, from everything I've been told, has sprinkles of Jahmyr Gibbs. And NFL teams, they believe they could get Jahmyr Gibbs out of Trey Henderson. The Steelers are one of those teams, and they're looking for that. They're looking for an explosive running back who could add a ton of speed, who could add that breakaway potential. They want a running back who can be the offensive weapon, who can be, they obviously want a ground and pound punch in the face guy. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they want a guy who can take over the offense, not take a 7-minute drive, but take over the offense. Be Saquon Barkley. That's what they're looking for. And they believe Trey Henderson is that guy, can be that guy. Quinshon Judkins is number 2, I believe, and a very close number 2 for sure. And then Caleb Johnson, in my eyes, is number 3 as more of a power guy with some speed, decent speed, but gives you Najee Harris vibes. A lot of Najee Harris vibes. And I don't know how high the Steelers are on going that way. But if Trey Henderson is there, I will name 2 prospects that I would put over him that I believe the Steelers would draft. Not me personally saying this is my list. These are names that I think the Steelers would draft ahead of Trey Henderson. And outside of quarterback, because I have no idea what's going on there, Kenneth Grant and Emeka Egbuka. That was it. And to be really honest, really honest, I think they'd have a really difficult discussion in that war room to go Emeka Egbuka or Trey Henderson, because they view Trey Henderson that good. Now, I think Quinshon Judkins, you start getting into names like Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, those types of guys. But Trey Henderson, I think, is maybe a top 5 guy on their board. And I don't disagree with it. You know, first-round running backs are questionable, but I also think the talent's there. If you could get a solid 8 years out of him and make him the guy, I understand it. The risk, the reward. Are there names I'm missing that you would believe the Steelers have in front of either of those running backs?
I mean, you always have the caveat of if someone crazy falls, like if Will Johnson falls, if Will Campbell falls, if Mason Graham falls, then of course he's going to be atop their list. But if you're talking, realistic possibilities, I do think Kenneth Grant, I agree. To me, Kenneth Grant is the piece. That's the guy that if he's available, you run to the podium. You don't, you don't discuss this. You go up and you draft Kenneth Grant, because that is what you need the most, and that is the best prospect that you're going to get at 21 right now. But as far as the running back position is concerned, I like Caleb Johnson, and you're right with everything you said. He fits the mold of a Pittsburgh Steeler. The problem with that is he almost fits it too well. Yes. The Steelers have been doing the same thing over and over again at the running back position for the last decade. The one thing that they've been missing, the one piece, the one characteristic that they haven't had from that position is home run capability. Yes. And TreVeyon Henderson, best exemplified by what he did in the college football playoff, has home run capability. Somebody that can just get through the hole and run 75 yards for a touchdown. Najee couldn't do that. I think Najee's longest run was under 40 yards in his 4 years as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I wouldn't be surprised if it was under 40 yards. Jaylen Warren has a little bit of that, but he hasn't really been able to kind of capitalize on it in his career. Trey Henderson comes in here and immediately gives you that. Now, am I confident and comfortable with the Steelers utilizing a first-round pick on a running back again? No, like I said, I'd rather them go Kenneth Grant. But if they are going to go running back in round 1, Trey Henderson is the guy that you should circle outside of the snowball's chance in hell that Ashton Jeanty ends up being the guy there.
Dude, if Ashton Jeanty ends up anywhere close to the Steelers, you go up and get him. And I think the Steelers would go up and get him. There are reports going out, and shout out to Fear the Beard here, that Jaxson Dart is coming to Pittsburgh. Now, I want to give my boy Mike DeFabo credit, because he is the one that reported it, not Steelers Depot. Shout out to DeFabo, and shout out to Jaxson Dart and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that changes my thought on not having dinner with them. Pre-draft visits are big and important. The Steelers, they use pre-draft visits differently than dinners. They bring in the guys that Marcus Jones. That's who they bring in. That's the best example I could come up with. A guy that they needed. You know, they needed a Marcus Jones. He was an answer for them to replace Mike Hilton at the time and really solidify that cornerback position in the second, maybe the third round. Made a lot of sense to bring that guy in. From everything I've been told, they had interest in him, but not a ton. They were just they were trying to create that interest. They use a lot of these pre-draft visits for that, you know? And sometimes it's just checking out everybody. Sometimes it's not checking out anybody at all. And we'll see what the final list looks like. But Tyler Shuck's also on that list. You want to know who isn't on that list right now? Who could emerge? Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, which I believe would be a local visit. But all of those names. And you got to read that as well as, okay, you know, they're adding the guys that they missed. Pro days are important, and they mean nothing. You're not watching them to prove anything, but you're there to understand them, to learn from their coaches, to do that that's what a pro day is networking for the Steelers, to learn more about these players that they wouldn't pick up just meeting with the players. That's what they're looking for. And pre-draft visits are different. Again, it's important, definitely significant. I don't think it changes my mind on the dinner.
Yeah. Two things here. One, for pro days, I think another small piece to this, and again, every NFL franchise looks at pro days in a different light. How often do you see other head coaches, as at least widely talked about as Mike Tomlin, what he does at these pro days? But I think one of the biggest things for them, especially with the quarterback, is seeing them in their own element, because you're seeing them at the Senior Bowl. They are plucked out of their element and thrown into a 1 week sprint to get to the Senior Bowl game. At the Combine, they are surrounded by everybody else in tights, basically, yes, and said, hey, go out there and do this in this controlled environment that is completely foreign to you. Yes. Seeing how they operate, seeing how they kind of move around the facility, in the facility that they've been in for at least a year, maybe 2 years. Yep. I think there's value in that for a lot of NFL franchises. And then number two, when it comes to pre-draft visits, the only thing I'll push back on is, was that not the first time we heard the name Mason McCormick last year, when we looked at the list of pre-draft visits to Pittsburgh and said, Mason McCormick? That's true. What? They're bringing in a guy from North Dakota? What are we doing? And then all of a sudden, fourth round, there's Mason McCormick. And it's like, I guess the clues were there. We just did not know it at the time.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think there's a little bit difference with the quarterback situation, as in, Cam Ward is a prime example here. The whole, I'm here to solidify that I'm the number one pick in the draft. Okay. Whereas that you get that jazz in those moments that I think at the quarterback position, you kind of, but I hear you 100%. Mason McCormick's a prime example of why I'm wrong on that. So I hear you. We'll see what happens. Jaxson Dart to me is a name, but I'm so curious about what the Steelers think of him, and I just don't know if they're that high on him as we want them to be, or maybe don't want them to be, depending on what side of the line you're on. All right. With that said, that's everything on our agenda. We're going to finish this one off by answering all of your questions, so make sure that you toss them in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can before we head out of here. Shout out to all our super chatters. Shout out to all our members. We surpassed 100 members the other day, so thank you guys so much. Felt really cool. I told my wife I was all jazzed up. She was like, "Oh, that's cool. What are we talking about?" I was like,
that's
"Awesome,
nice, honey. That's
nice." That's what I got. I got a. Oh, that's very cool. I was like, "Yeah, you have not." To me, that's awesome. So thank you guys. Can't tell you how much we appreciate you. With that said, Nick, what do we got?
Yeah, let's kick things off with ND Joe, who says, "I'm getting tired of Rodgers Watch 2025. Can we just say no change and press on with the rest of our day? Draft Mason's replacement this year and go after the franchise quarterback in 2026. Great show, guys."
Appreciate you. I think we're all getting tired of the Rodgers Watch, but the Rodgers Watch is happening, and it's not going to end until it ends. I can't say anytime soon because it could end today, tomorrow. It does not. Nobody has any idea. What we do know is that it's not over yet. It's not over yet. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the weekend brings. Again, I've been told Sunday, roughly Sunday. I'm going to look like a fool because I put a hard date on it, but I couldn't hold back. I had to let you guys know exactly what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. If it happens, awesome. I still have that's the one part of this that has remained very, very consistent, is that every time you talk to anybody, I have no idea if we're going to get them. And I'm like, all right, Sounds good. Sounds good. Glad we have an idea of when it could happen, but have no idea if it's going to. That seems great.
Sorry, go ahead.
As for 2026, I would anticipate that the Pittsburgh Steelers make a massive trade to go get their quarterback in 2026. I fully anticipate that, whether they draft a guy this year or not.
Let's now go to Smoody Booty, who says Rodgers should live stream his darkness retreats. Would be great content while I'm home from work sick.
That would be awesome, actually. I think we should do a darkness retreat and live stream that. That's what we should, just to see what it's like. He didn't last the full week either. I'm pretty sure.
It was only 3 days.
3 days. It was supposed to be a week. And he did the 3 days. But I've also heard you start hallucinating in there. It starts getting real crazy in pitch black for 3 days. So I don't think I'd be able to do a week of solitude in pitch black. So shout out to Aaron Rodgers, man, doing things I cannot. I think it'd be great content. I think it'd be great. I think there's a hard chance we get canceled from the things that we may say in this darkness retreat. And, who knows, dude? Who knows? We could just be looked like as lunatics by the end of it. But I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be good content.
Quick just aside here. Robert says, did you say Denver would probably draft a quarterback? It was a Freudian slip. We've been talking about quarterbacks for 3 weeks. Noah was talking about running backs as far as the Denver Broncos are concerned.
Yeah, I apologize on that. Vegas, Dallas, Denver, Pittsburgh, all running back teams to watch in the first round.
Let's go to Maddie, who says, good morning, guys. If we don't get Aaron Rodgers, how should we draft the first 3 rounds that we currently have? Who would you take in the first, third, and fourth?
I would go, if the Steelers don't get Aaron Rodgers, I would go, if it falls perfectly realistically, Kenneth Grant in the first round. Oh, man, I'd have such a hard time passing on. I just don't think the running backs are going to be there by the third. So in the third round, I guess I'm going Jalen Milroe. And then in the fourth round, maybe Devin Neal out of Kansas. It'd have to be Dylan Sampson. I think is going to climb his way into the middle of the rounds there in the next couple of weeks.
Ollie Gordon, maybe.
Yeah, Ollie Gordon. Who's the dude I still never remember the dude's name out of Texas. He's a name to watch there in the middle rounds. I'd go running back fourth. First and third, I'd go, without making any trades, Kenneth Grant and Jalen Milroe.
Let's go to Marlon, who says, how many more bad decisions do the Steelers have to make before they understand quarterbacks are found in the draft? Yes, you can have a veteran quarterback win, but 8 years is the longest gap between quarterback Super Bowl appearances.
Yep. I think they're learning that now. I think they are well aware that they need a franchise quarterback through the draft. The thing is, they don't want one this year. They want one next year. And it makes more sense to go after one next year. I think it's a way better option, and they're waiting it. They're not going to make the Kenny Pickett move once again. So it's more so what's their best solution this year to try and stay competitive, because they're not going to tank. This team isn't built to tank. It's Aaron Rodgers. So they'll push it out 1 year with Aaron Rodgers. They'll go into the draft next year, and they will try to find their franchise quarterback. That is almost a guarantee where we sit here right now.
Let's go to, speaking of almost, let's go to Almost All-Star, who says, if Rodgers comes to Pittsburgh, wouldn't we want him on the roster for 2 years? We need a quarterback next year. We aren't going to get a quarterback in this year's draft that is going to be ready to start by 2026.
No, you're going to draft a quarterback next year. So for 2 things, Rodgers could come back next year if the Steelers are on the verge of a Super Bowl and they need to bring back Rodgers for a year. That's a possibility, obviously. But they're only offering him a 1-year deal. That's not going to change. When it comes to next year, they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round that they believe is a starter right off the bat. That is their guy, the next possible franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to have a great team around him. That's the best part about this, is this is not going to be the worst team. This is not going to be a quarterback going to the Giants. This is not going to be a quarterback going to the Titans. This is a quarterback going to the Steelers, who will probably win 9-10 games this year and be ready to go plug in a franchise quarterback, hopeful, next year. So they'll only want Aaron this year. They'll want Mason, a first-round rookie, and a second-year mid-round guy on the roster next year, and they will say who's the best available or who's the best on our roster. That's who's going to start in 2026.
Just bring Chris Oladokun back so we can get on with the championships, right?
Chris O, bro. He's going to go down with more championship rings than any Steelers quarterbacks ever had, Terry Bradshaw included.
Let's go to Eddie the First, who says, "Good morning, boys. Can we please make a pact? When he eventually goes to Minnesota or retires, can we not mention Aaron Rodgers' name again until the season starts?"
I say this all the time to Nick off the show, is that the only outcome I want of this is the Pittsburgh Steelers to sign Aaron Rodgers so that for the rest of time, we get to say things like former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Aaron Rodgers runs for president on the pitch of darkness retreats. Like, you know what I mean? Former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Aaron Rodgers does this wild thing on the Pat McAfee show. Like, that's all I want in this. Because think of the guys that the Steelers have had forever and how boring they were. I mean, I loved it. It was awesome. But just think of the wild turn of events that has happened in the last 12 months and what could happen. That, like, the Steelers went from Terry Bradshaw, who is just your, buckle up, hard nosed, blue collar, I'm going to work. Yeah, he's a farm boy. He's not saying anything. And when he does say something controversial, you're like, so much respect to Terry, bro. Love that guy. Ben Roethlisberger, dude. Ben Roethlisberger, he's getting more and more media as it goes on, but he's never going to say anything super outlandish. He's never going to be the guy that pops off and you're just like, oh, Big Ben's making national headlines. That's not Big Ben. Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are the most controversial quarterbacks in the NFL in the last decade. And they're both possibly former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks. Like, just the wild turn of events that I just because of the irony, I just think that would be hilarious. And again, it's for 1 year. Okay. It's going to be a tough year. I get it, but we're all living a life we didn't think we were gonna. And I think sometimes you just got to look at the brighter side of things in these situations.
Yeah, with Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, throw Antonio Brown in there. You got like the infinity stones of headline drivers for the Steelers.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we just even like, I get it. Everybody will be like content. I'm looking at it more so of like, I didn't get to cover Antonio Brown, but I wish I did, because I wish I got to experience that. Like, I want to experience Aaron Rodgers for one. I just want to see what it's like, man. I got Russ. And now I want Aaron. I don't care about the content. Just, these are the things I'm just driven by them. I'm so interested in the situation.
Let's go to I'm MF Tide, who says, "Hey, Noah, if Rodgers does sign, what will be the first question that you ask him?"
I would probably ask something along the lines of the contract never changed. And if the contract never changed, what were the other components of this? Why did it take so long to go through and find out your answer to choose the Pittsburgh Steelers if nothing ever changed? And then if that got asked before it, my question would be something along the lines of, the Steelers never really viewed you as the savior, but they view you as a piece to the puzzle that can help them get there. Was that something that played a role into it? Because I have a feeling from everything I've been told that he really respects that the Steelers do not view him as a savior.
Let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, "So did the Steelers do the opposite of what Rooney wanted? Instead of getting a mobile quarterback, they go with Rodgers."
Yeah. Look, Rodgers is a one-time, you just got to push it out guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's all it is. It's the best option this year so that you don't make a mistake in the first round and draft a quarterback. That's all Aaron Rodgers is. So it has nothing to do with what Rooney wants. At the same time, Rooney is involved in this quarterback search. This is not the Pittsburgh Steelers going against Art Rooney. Rooney is involved. He's got a hand in this. He knows what's going on. He's helping make decisions. He is well aware of the Steelers going after Aaron Rodgers, and he is in support of the situation. So it's the opposite of what the Steelers have preached. Still, everybody that you need to be involved is involved, and they are aware of the situation.
Let's jump down to Egyptian Roughneck, who says, "Can we just put faith in Mason Rudolph? I think it's going to be a special year, but since you won't play me in Madden, how about a round of golf on me?"
Oh, golf all day. All day, every day. Nick's up in the Berg right now. We could golf anytime. I mean, I do leave for Florida tomorrow, but if Nick's back, then we'll do some golfing anytime. Madden, no chance, pal. No, I'm not rage quitting in Madden. I just can't. I'm 29 years old. I can't be doing that.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, hey guys, do you think Darnell Washington is going to be utilized more next season? The man is a freak of nature and very hard to tackle. He's actually worked his way into being the second main target in Madden.
Dude, he is a cheat code in Madden. I've told him that. He's not a Madden guy. I've told him, dude, you should play Madden and just play yourself because you are a cheat code. I don't understand how Madden just was like, Darnell Washington, we love you. And you are our guy. I don't know what's going to go on with Darnell Washington. I look at him as a question mark. You know, he's obviously going to be heavily involved in the offense when it comes to the running game, but is he going to be more involved in the passing game? I don't know. I think every year we're going to find that out. We're going to learn that, but I do not have an exact answer of if that's the case or not, because the Steelers have not really given us an answer. You know, they've shown both sides of this. Darnell heavily involved, Darnell not involved at all. So we're going to see. It's honestly like a situation where I can't predict. I would imagine, but I'm not going to give you guys a definite.
Let's jump to Dalton, who says, what's more likely? Steelers trade back in this year's draft or they trade up?
I guess trade up because they don't have a tendency of trading back, but I don't think it's likely they do either. I think it's most likely. Oh, Hunter Renfrow is back on the market, which is a name to watch for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just tossing it out there. When it comes to trading, I don't think they're going to do it. I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers as a team that feel very comfortable at 21. The draft is not filled with those big, crazy names. There's only like a couple of them. And then it all looks the same. So there's just not the big splashy guy that if he falls to 50, unless it's Ashton Genty, but that's not realistic, the Steelers would go get. I don't imagine they make a move either way. What's more likely is they trade up.
Let's go back to Egyptian Roughneck really quickly, who says, using Washington in Madden is unbelievable.
He is, dude. He's a literal cheat code. It's wild that he is. I mean, he's better than Pat, which is nuts, which is crazy, but he is a cheat code in Madden. He is a cheat code in Madden.
Let's go to Wesley Reed, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, I have a question I would like answered. Why has everyone written off Riley Leonard, or has he not declared for the draft? He was good at Duke and even better when he went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, he's declared. He's in the draft. I spoke with him at the NFL Combine. I think he's considered a mid-round pick for any team, really. You know, 4th, 5th round. He's a guy that didn't really have the passing that people were looking for, and his athleticism is good, but like a guy like Jalen Milroe has a ton of upside. Riley Leonard might not have the same upside. I think Riley could turn into a decent quarterback in the NFL. I think he could be a pretty quality backup and maybe a guy who can compete for a starting job. But I do think that there are limitations to what Riley Leonard can do. I think he's athletic, but he's not the most athletic. And I think he's got great leadership, but his arm is questionable, and teams are kind of aware of that. Plus, I'm pretty sure his hand size is just on the border of big enough. And that's important, okay? That is important. If you grip in NFL football, it is ridiculously hard to grip. So I don't think I'm ruling him out, but I don't think he is very high on the Steelers list.
Let's go to Demetrius, who says, Isaac Seumalo played right guard in Philly, and Mason McCormick played left guard in college. Why wouldn't you just switch them back for the best results?
Yeah, at this point, I think it's too deep, but I agree with you. You know, that's the Steelers' biggest flaw with linemen is they love to move guys all over the place, and it makes zero sense at all. So I think Mason McCormick eventually is a left guard, which is nuts to say eventually. Isaac Seumalo is entering the last year of his deal. I would guess they push through it this year with what they're looking at, and then they make a decision there. But I would not, I think if Broderick Jones doesn't work out at left tackle, you might actually move Broderick Jones to guard and try him there before you go move Mason over, which again is nuts to say, but that's just how I believe the Steelers would handle it.
Let's jump down to Egyptian Roughneck one more time. Says last one, open field, Troy Polamalu versus Barry Sanders. Who wins?
Barry Sanders. Shout out to Troy, man, but there's one football player better than Barry Sanders in the history of the NFL, and that's Lawrence Taylor. So shout out to Barry. You ain't tackling Barry in open field. No matter if it's just you and him, I'm putting my money on Barry every time, no matter who you are. So shout out Troy, all respect. He would probably give you the same answer.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, I have one more for you guys. Are you going to do any live shows from OTAs or training camp this season?
Yeah. We'll be live. I mean, OTAs is only like 3 days out of the week, and it's pretty early in the morning. So I'm usually back at here in my home office doing live streams by the end of the day. So podcast schedule will remain the same during OTAs. Nothing will change there and mini camp. And then during training camp, we'll get the schedule and we'll figure that all out. But yeah, we go live pretty much every single day from training camp. We did it last year. I would imagine we are definitely going to do it again this year. So it'll be me fighting for a room somewhere in St. Vincent College looking for something.
Elbowing out Nick Farabaugh and Alan Saunders.
Yeah. And Chris Halleck every time, every day.
Let's go to DCTV, who says, did you see the 500-pounder Desmond Watson from Florida, possibly a UDFA? I say we pick him up.
Yeah, I did see him. I think what did he run? He beat the 6. He ran a 4 or 5.8.9, something like that, 40-yard dash. Honestly, I think I'd be very close to what he ran. I think it'd be right there in the same park, and I'm 201 pounds, maybe. He's twice my weight plus some. Yeah, he's a monster. I don't know if it transitions to the NFL, but he's a monster and he's so fun to watch.
Let's go down to Nate Moore, who goes back to the Troy versus Barry conversation and says, what about Nick versus Noah in the open field? My biggest question about this one is which one of us is the ball carrier and which one of us is on defense? Because
it doesn't matter, dude. My knees are giving out both ways.
Okay, well, that's good. I was going to say, if I'm on defense, you don't stand a chance. If I'm on offense, I'm not quite sure how good I'd be at that one.
Yeah, no, I'm not making a move either way, dude. One cut, knees are gone, then we're back. We're laying on the ground crying, probably.
You're folding like a lawn chair, just stick them out in the parking spot.
Did you ever see the Tom Segura like basketball thing where his knee just snaps? That would be me trying to tackle you.
His shoulder dislocates. His entire life ended that day.
Yeah, exactly. That would be me trying to tackle or run past you either way. I'm putting my money on Nick.
All right, let's go to Yinzer Joe, who says, what if the Steelers get Rodgers and he actually wins a Super Bowl for them? Do you see them still drafting a quarterback this year and next? And if he still wants to play, will Pittsburgh keep him?
I doubt Aaron Rodgers wins a Super Bowl and doesn't walk into the sunset, and just say that was it. That's the best way to go out ever. I think that's how he would leave. But if for some reason he wanted to come back, you sign him and you bring him back. You still draft your quarterback. You still draft your franchise quarterback in the first round next year. You still draft a guy this year, but you bring back Aaron and you say, yep, sounds good. You could try to win another one for us. And then after that, we're going to move on to this rookie and try to win another one. And as the rookie starts year 2. So that's exactly how that would go down. But I don't think Aaron would win a Super Bowl and say, I want to come back if he's taking this long to contemplate retirement for a second year in a row. That's going out on top. I think that's the easiest way to walk away.
We got one more about Aaron Rodgers from Forever, who says, is there a dark horse team that might sneak in and sign Rodgers at the last minute?
Do we consider Minnesota a dark horse team? Because
no, not at this time.
I don't think there is another one then, to be honest. I think it's Minnesota. I think Minnesota would be the only other team that could sign Aaron at this point. Besides that, it's the Steelers. Obviously, somebody can, get hurt, something like that, but I don't believe it's very likely that another team jumps on board here.
I mean, maybe a CFL team. I don't. Yeah,
Trey Lance maybe going up to the Roughnecks as of yesterday, 2 days ago. Yeah,
maybe that's who ends up.
If Aaron Rodgers signs quicker with the CFL than he does the Steelers, I mean, tells you all you need to know about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I mean, he's never won a Grey Cup, has he? Is he really a legend if he hasn't won a Grey Cup?
I don't know. Ask Doug Flutie.
Let's go down to Lucid Music, who says, shout out to you guys, Nick and Noah, at work currently on break. Just wanted to ask, if they're taking a quarterback in the first round this year, which quarterback would be your ideal pick besides Cam Ward?
That's a great question. That's a tough question, to be honest. Cam Ward's the only guy I'm like certain of is going to work out. Shedeur Sanders, I think you have to be in the right system, and I don't think the Steelers are the right system. Jaxson Dart, I think you have to be in the right system. I think the Steelers are more of the right system, but I don't know what his ceiling is. Tyler Shuck is impressive to me as we go through this, but I still don't view him as like the guy. Oh, gosh, that's so hard. If they were, okay, if I was gun to the head, have to draft a quarterback in the first round, it can't be Cam Ward. Who are you going to draft? I'm still saying Aaron Rodgers signs this year. I'm going Jalen Milroe. I don't like it at all, but I'm going Jalen Milroe. I just think he's the only guy that has first-round upside, like real first-round upside. Jaxson Dart would be number 2, but like, my gosh, that's a boring pick. Jalen Milroe, Jaxson Dart, I'd feel terrible about both of them.
When it comes to draft positioning, if we're talking about they get him at 21 and the only person taken is Cam Ward, I would probably take Shedeur. I think best quarterback, if I had to get a quarterback out of this draft in totality, I'd rather have Jalen Milroe, but I'd rather have him in the second or the third. I wouldn't want to take him with a first-round pick. No, but if Shedeur falls, I think Shedeur in the first is better than Jalen in the first, certainly.
I agree. I think they're all terrible picks. All terrible picks.
Yeah. Let's go to Wesley Reed again, who says, why not just get a free agent running back this year and get Nick Singleton and or Katron Allen as a running back in the draft next year?
I think that this year's running back class is great, and I don't think there's a significant difference, if a difference at all. I don't even know if I'd put Nick Singleton or Allen over a guy like Trey Henderson or Quinshon Judkins. I think they'd be all in the same ballpark. And, I do. I think even if it was a discussion of like those guys are in the mix, there wouldn't be like a gap between any of them. It's not like you'd be like, oh, I got to draft Singleton over Trey Henderson.
There's not a clear-cut favorite.
Yeah. I think they'd all be in that same group of like first, second round running backs, like who you're just going to take. And I think why wait, Why wait? Go get a guy so that next year you could go get a quarterback and you don't have to worry about the running back position. That's how I view it.
All right. That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we close out week 3 of Aaron Rodgers Watch, and we head into the NFL league meetings, a potential deadline that may or may not be on the table for Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully a decision sometime soon. But we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. Please go hit us with that 5-star review on Apple. That 4.3 bothers me every single day. So we appreciate you guys. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Once again, big shout out to everybody who subscribed, our super chatters and our members. We will be back on Monday, unless Aaron Rodgers signs before then. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.